give it a shot. Do you know anyone who likes getting shots? I don't think I do. I remember my friend Elizabeth once telling me in elementary school she threatened to jump out of her doctor's window rather than get a shot. But regardless of how we feel about shots, we can all be grateful that vaccinations today look very different from what Jenner used more than 200 years ago when he inserted cowpox pus into open cuts on James Phipps's arm. Today, most are shots that only take seconds to deliver, and some vaccines even come in the form of a nose spray or a drop of liquid on your tongue. When you get a vaccination, you're more likely to avoid the specific virus guarded against, and you're also contributing to herd immunity. Like cattle in a herd, not the most flattering image for us, but bear with me please, people live together in communities, and when almost everyone in a community is immunized or protected against a disease, that group protection acts as a shield, keeping those who can't get vaccinated, like infants and people with severe illnesses, from getting sick too. The more dangerous the disease, the more individuals need to be vaccinated to ensure herd immunity works. And because we live in a society where people travel and move around so much, it's especially important that everyone who can get vaccinated does, because our germs go with us. Right now, in the United States, there are fierce debates about vaccines and whether or not they are safe or necessary, particularly in the context of what is known as the MMR vaccine, which covers measles, mumps, and rubella, hence the name MMR, all viruses that can make people really sick and can even be deadly. These are not new debates. George Washington had to convince a skeptical Continental Congress that inoculating American troops against smallpox has more benefits than risks. More than 100 years ago, in 1905, the U.S. Supreme Court decided that American states could require that everyone get the smallpox vaccine. Less than 20 years later, in 1922, the Supreme Court decided that school districts didn't have to let kids who had not received mandatory vaccination into their schools. These cases hardly settled the issue. In 2014, the U.S. had record high rates of measles for recent years, tied to low vaccination rates. Adults choose not to get themselves or their children vaccinated for many reasons that have no basis in science. One reason people say they won't get the flu vaccine is that it gives them the flu. This is not actually possible. There is no live virus in the flu shot, so it's impossible for the flu vaccine to give anyone the flu. Scientists do their best to predict which strains of flu will be the most common in a given year and to create a flu vaccine to protect against those strains. But they don't always get it right. In part because the flu shot only protects against certain flu strains. It's possible to get the flu by being infected by a strain the vaccine didn't guard you against. It's also possible that your body failed to develop immunity against the flu strains included in the flu vaccine. That's rare, but it happens. What's important to understand is that it's impossible to get the flu because you've gotten a flu shot. A particularly troubling misconception about vaccines is that they cause other diseases, like autism. There is not one virus-sized piece of scientific evidence to back up this claim. Another reason people say they're not getting themselves or their kids vaccinated is because they think the disease in question is not so serious, whether it's the flu or measles. Let's go back to measles, part of the MMR vaccine. the one vaccine most commonly believed to cause autism, despite there being no evidence to support such a link. Someone who gets measles will have a high fever, cough, sore throat, and a full body red rash. At best, it's uncomfortable, but at worst, it's lethal. Both the flu and measles can be very serious, even deadly, particularly for small children or older adults. Recent research also show that measles weaken our systems long after we recover, if we recover, making us more vulnerable to other infections. Both measles and the flu spread through the air by coughs and sneezes, making them hard to avoid in places where there are a lot of people close together, like schools or a transportation system. If you live in New York like I do, think of our subway system. So, prevention through vaccines is all the more important, since hand washing is at best not easy and often impossible to do on a bus, plane, or train. Yet another reason often offered against the use of vaccines is that improved hygiene and sanitation are responsible for the decline of disease rates in developed countries like the United States. While it's absolutely true that housing with more space and better ventilation, not overcrowded, cleaner water, improved sanitation, no more mixing poop and water, and safer food have helped people stay healthy, not get sick, and recover from sickness more quickly, there is no doubt that vaccinations have also helped. This is particularly true with measles. Before the vaccine was introduced in the 1960s, there were hundreds of thousands of measles cases in the United States. Within a decade, the cases were measured in tens of thousands, and by the time I was born in 1980, in the thousands. In 2000, there were only 86 confirmed cases, from hundreds of thousands to less than 100 in 40 years. That is the power of vaccines. So, why are we starting to see an uptick in measles cases in the US now? The recent rise in measles sadly demonstrates the power of fear and the ability of misinformation about the MMR vaccine and autism to travel as quickly as any email or Facebook post. There's a clear link between lower vaccination rates and more people getting measles today than a few years ago. There are things in this book where there is not one clear answer. On vaccines, there is. We shouldn't have to worry about measles anymore. But we do, and will until vaccination rates go back up. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about smallpox any longer. For the flu, which we'll talk more about below, we can protect ourselves by getting vaccinated, washing our hands with soap and water, and avoiding touching our eyes, nose, and mouth. In other words, places that provide great opportunities for germs to walk right into our bodies. All of that protects our family and friends too. If we do get sick, we should stay home from school or work, drink lots of fluids, and rest. All things many of us hear from our parents and our doctors. Why? Because keeping our bodies hydrated and getting enough sleep helps us heal faster. I am 35 years old, and I still get that advice from my mom on a regular basis.